Let's begin. This is the City of Pacifica City Council meeting of March 8th, 2021, and we're starting at 7:01 p.m. We are going to begin with roll call.
Councilmember Big Stick,
Present.
Councilmember Butterloss,
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer,
Here.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Here. And a salute to the flag by Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Clerk Coffey, did you want to make comments now, or should we do the consent first?
I'll go ahead and make the comments about the meeting format for tonight.
Thank you.
This meeting is being held by video conference with no physical location open to the public. The public can observe and participate in the meeting via the Zoom link provided in the agenda or by phone to the dial-in number and webinar ID provided in the agenda. The meeting may also be observed live on local TV channel 26 or online at www.cityofpacifica.org/live stream. For this meeting, live verbal public comments may be made through participation by Zoom. For members of the public participating via Zoom, use the raise hand button to indicate that you wish to speak on an agenda item or during oral communications when the mayor calls upon that item. For those participating by phone, use *9 or *9 to raise your hand to request to speak. The city clerk will call upon speakers at the appropriate time and allow you to unmute to talk after calling you by screen name or the last 4 digits of your phone number if you're dialing in. Please clearly state your full name for the record at the start of your public comment. Written and email public comments will not be read during the meeting, but will be made part of the written record and provided to council members. Email comments are not being monitored live during the meeting. The format of this meeting may be altered or the meeting may be canceled if needed. You may check on the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at www.cityofpacifica.org for any updates.
All right, thank you. So we will move to the consent
Mayor
agenda.
Beckmeyer,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. We are not yet live to the public.
Oh. Then we'll wait.
So was there?
No, we are live. I can see, I put the TV on and we're on there.
We are now broadcasting on
Oh.
Zoom.
Okay.
and-
Oh, on
and
Zoom. Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you, Clerk
Elizabeth.
Coffey.
So, City Clerk, have we been Zooming for the whole period? Or do we need to repeat?
We
your-
should repeat the call to
Thank
order
you.
and roll call for the Zoom participants.
All right. Due to a technical difficulty, we are going to have the welcome again to the City Council, the City of Pacifica City Council meeting of March 8th. And it is 7:04 p.m. And we'll have roll call, please.
Councilmember Big Stick,
Present.
Councilmember Butterloss,
Here.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer,
Here.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Here.
I'll make a few comments regarding the meeting format tonight. This meeting is being held by video conference with no physical location open to the public. The public can observe and participate in the meeting via the Zoom link provided in the agenda or the dial-in number and webinar ID provided in the agenda if participating by phone. This meeting may be observed live on local TV channel 26 or online at www.cityofpacifica.org/live stream. For this meeting, live verbal public comments may be made through participation by Zoom. For members of the public participating via Zoom, use the raise hand button to indicate that you wish to speak on an agenda item or during oral communications when the mayor calls upon that item. For those participating by phone, use *9 or *9 to raise your hand to request to speak. The city clerk will call upon speakers at the appropriate time and allow you to unmute after calling your screen name or the last 4 digits of your phone number if you're dialing in. Please clearly state your full name for the record at the start of your public comment. Written and email public comments will not be read during the meeting, but will be made part of the written record and provided to council members. Email comments are not being monitored live during the meeting. The format of this meeting may be altered or the meeting may be canceled if needed. You may check on the status of the meeting by visiting the city's website at www.cityofpacifica.org for any updates.
All right. So we will move to the consent calendar. Persons wishing to address the council on any consent calendar item may do so at this time. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Items on the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion unless a council member or person in the audience requests before the vote on the motion to have an item discussed. Time limits on comments is 3 minutes or less. Do we have members of the public that would like to speak? It looks like I see 4 hands so far. Deputy City Clerk. Oh, look, we just had a whole bunch more hands. So just to clarify, this is for items on the consent calendar, which according to our agenda tonight are items 1 through 8. If you were speaking on item 9 or 10, you'll need to wait until that item comes up on the agenda. Deputy City Clerk, are you ready?
Mayor Beckmeyer, Elizabeth Brooks, your Deputy City Clerk. Our first speaker is Cindy. Please state your name for the record when I unmute you.
I'm not sure which agenda this is because I don't know the list of what you have. I just have a few questions that I wanted to ask you, if that's possible.
I think you'll need to wait on that until the beginning of oral communications, which will occur after we vote on the consent calendar.
Okay, so how do you know, how does the public know what's on the list of the consent calendar?
The agenda is posted on the city's website under the city council meetings.
So Madam Mayor, we should probably ask the speaker, what item does she wish to speak upon?
Cindy, which item was it, or what was the topic?
The building of the church and the stables, they're using bulldozers. And my
Okay,
question was, how can,
we'll take your comments on that during oral communications. Was there something else?
no.
Okay, we'll take your comments on that during oral communications, and you'll know when oral communications starts. I will call for oral communications.
Our next speaker is James Kramer, who will be followed by Christine Bowles. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, good evening. I'm Jim Kramer. I'm a Sharp Park resident. I'll apologize. I don't have much experience in dealing with the consent calendar items, and I looked at this kind of late thinking I'll just sit and watch tonight. But I have a question about the item number 7, the Sharp Park pump station. As all of you know, actually all the council members at least know, I have voiced some concerns about the infrastructure issues related to the Sharp Park infrastructure resiliency project. My concern, and I don't know in depth about what the consent calendar item specifies, and that's the reason for prefacing with my apology, but it seems to me that this agenda item is closely linked with a lot of other questions about the infrastructure in the Sharp Park project at large. And I've commented with you guys a number of times on that. I don't know whether it makes, so my concern is that it doesn't make sense to go ahead with this right now when there's some other really important pending items that maybe depend upon whether this should be done would depend upon those other things. So I'm happy to have you, if you're willing to discuss that a little bit before you decide what to do with my proposal, that would be great. But otherwise, I think the public might benefit from a discussion about why we would go ahead with this without more open public discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim. It sounds like perhaps you'd like to request that we pull the item from the consent calendar. Is that correct?
I guess so.
Okay.
Sorry to be a pest.
No, not at all. That's what my little preamble was all about. No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Next, we'll hear from Christine Bowles, followed by Suzanne Moore. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Christine Bowles. I'd like to ask for consent item 8 about the updates for the housing element to be pulled. I have some questions because it seems like there are a lot of blank items where things haven't been done, which supposedly were supposed to be reported on during the course of the year. One example is action item 3, the Casa Persida apartments. The owner was supposed to be contacted because the contract was expiring, and actually the contract has now expired, and it doesn't say any contact has been made. So again, just following up that items are being taken care of. Thank you.
Sure. So we'll request that that item is pulled as well.
Suzanne Moore, followed by Cliff Lawrence. Please state your name for the record.
Suzanne Moore, Manor resident, and I also wish to have address item number 8 on the consent calendar and suggest it be pulled and rescheduled to accommodate greater public education and comment. The Regional Housing Needs Assessment, Pacifica's housing progress, best practices for production goals for very low to moderate income housing, proposed zoning changes and their impact on the community all deserve public education and input. 81% of Pacifica's housing built since 2010 is above average income housing. Even if new ADUs were priced affordably for those of low income, ADUs alone will not meet Pacifica's housing needs. Housing needs challenged before the pandemic are now critical. Low-income housing must be prioritized and built in areas safe from fires, floods, landslides, and erosion. Please schedule this item for needed public education and input. Thank you.
Cliff Lawrence, followed by Marjorie Lovell. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Cliff Lawrence. I'm in West Fairmont area. I thought maybe the inclusion of number 8, in the consent calendar, I thought possibly was a mistake because according to the document itself, it suggests that the normal thing is to have this presented in a public hearing. And I think it's deserving of that, considering all the interest and concern about housing in this area and how much that came up in our goals discussion over the weekend. So I would ask that it be pulled and presented in a public hearing form.
Okay.
Marjorie Lovell, followed by James Kramer.
We can't hear you, Miss Lovell. I don't know if you can hear us. It looks like,
Okay, can you hear now?
yes, we can. We're resetting the clock.
Okay, terrific. Sorry about that.
No
I
problem.
was intending to speak out against the Cape Breton project up on the
Okay,
hill,
well, we'll
but I
take-
understand you don't want to address it right now.
right.
Is there any way you can post the consent calendar so we can visually see the same thing you do so we know what you're talking about? Because it's a little confusing
Sure.
not
Those-
having that.
We can get that information to you later. The consent agenda and all of the attachments are posted on the city's website.
Madam Mayor, can you suggest to people that they go to the city's website and register to have the agenda emailed to them?
Great idea. City Clerk Coffee, can you tell people briefly how to do that?
Yes, if you visit the City of Pacifica website at www.cityofpacifica.org, under City Government, City Council, there's a City Council Agendas webpage. And that provides information about how to how to get the meeting agenda information that has the meeting Zoom links. And there's a link at the bottom just prior to public comments where you can click to email a message to the city clerk to sign up for email distribution list for the city council agendas.
And Sarah, they can also do that for planning commission also, correct?
Yes. So you can specify that you'd like to be registered for city council and or planning commission email agenda distribution lists.
In the event that you're not that good of a multitasker, is there any way you could keep it on the site just like you just did, have it be a square like the little pictures of ourselves so that any of us who are attending the meeting could click on that and visually see it at the same time? Right now, is that a difficult task?
So, Madam Mayor, this is really not the opportunity for dialogue.
Okay. So we will note your question and take it up at a later time.
So now to Carolyn Jaramillo. Please state your name for the record.
Carolyn Jaramillo, Pacifica resident. I too agree with Suzanne Moore and want item 8 pulled and have more time devoted to that so the public can have a chance for input. Pacifica needs a real shift to low and very low income housing. Workers here in Pacifica in ordinary jobs, the workers that we all depend upon, need to have some hope of having a chance to live here in Pacifica where they work. So I would ask that item 8 be pulled tonight and be given a time when there will be public education and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other comments, Deputy City Clerk?
Madam Mayor, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Then I will bring it back to council with the understanding that we're pulling items 7 and 8. City attorney and city manager, can you clarify for me the options in pulling this item in as much as it's on tonight's consent item? Does that mean we need to have a discussion on it tonight? Or can we pull it and save it to another meeting? Please explain the options.
I would, Madam Mayor, I would ask that the city manager first discuss whether or not this needs to be approved tonight. And then he can discuss what options there would be for the council, or I can chime in. But first we need to hear from the city manager as to whether or not he needs to have this item heard tonight or not.
And before we do that, should we approve the first 6 items if there's a motion to do that? Or do we do this first? I'm sorry, I'm getting my order all backwards.
I move that we approve consent items 1 through 6.
Second.
Consent items number 1 through 6 moved by O'Neill and seconded by Vaterlos. I'll call the roll call vote. Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And consent calendar items number 1 through 6 passed with a unanimous vote.
All right, so then, Joe, shall we hear from the city manager then on item 8 so that we can decide if we're going to discuss that tonight or not?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Beckmeyer and Mayor Pro Tem Beer and council members, Kevin Woodhouse, city manager. I'll make a couple introductory comments, and in terms of the 2 consent items, number 7 and number 8, we recommend the council consider those. Staff is prepared to provide more details about each of those since they've both been pulled. And so, during council discussion or deliberation on each of those, you could decide if you wanted to continue either of the items. But one thing that I'll say about item 8, the annual update to the annual progress report on the housing element, is that this is a really perfunctory annual update about what has transpired in this last year. It's not a policy debate about what should be included in future housing element revisions. And on Saturday at council goal setting, the council identified as a major initiative for this next year, a process related to that housing element update and education. So I believe there's a deadline looming, and Director or Assistant City Manager, Planning Director Wehrmeister could probably speak to that deadline, the importance of approving the annual update tonight. And then in terms of item number 7, we have Public Works staff that can provide more information about that design contract. And I can speak more and make some introductory comments about the purpose and the need to get that project moving at this time as well. So whatever your preference is on how you want to take these, we're here to help.
I think we'll take them in order. How about that?
Sure.
So council members on item 7, are there questions or comments that you have? Or shall we go ahead and hear from city staff on this first?
Yes.
City staff?
Staff.
Okay,
Yes.
very well. Let's go
Sure.
ahead.
Yeah, I'll make a couple intro comments then, and I have Deputy Director Lewis Sun here that can speak in more detail to it. As the council is aware, we have a wastewater infrastructure master plan, and we regularly upgrade and improve our collections and our pump stations. And that's what this item is about. Several years ago, the council directed, not unrelated to the need to get that site ready for future development, that we assess potential for improving odor control at that pump station and other related improvements that improve the system and make that site more attractive for future hotel development. So we began that conceptual design process, I believe at least 2 years ago. And this contract is to prepare the more detailed design and bid package for that work to progress and make sure that our wastewater infrastructure is top notch. We have also in the report as indicated the award-winning collection system and wastewater infrastructure that we have. And so we're continuing that trend. And I'll stop there and turn it over to Deputy Director Sun to provide more detail.
Thank you, City Manager Woodhouse. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members. My name is Lewis Sun, Deputy Director of Public Works, Wastewater. Back in May 13, 2019, City Council approved an agreement with Woodard & Curran, our designer, to prepare a preliminary conceptual plan. And this preliminary conceptual plan was for the relocation of sewer and force main at Sharp Park Pump Station. It also looked at and recommended odor and grease control improvements. And today, this staff report and this item is as City Manager Woodhouse stated, is the continuation of this process and is primarily focused on the design for the odor and grease control for Sharp Park Pump Station. Our consultant has recommended several improvements that we can add to improve odor. Our goal is to provide 100% odor control for Sharp Park and for the surrounding neighborhood. And this would also enhance for future development in that area.
I believe there were questions from a council member on this, at least one council member on this item prior to tonight's meeting. And I wonder if we need to elaborate on those questions and the answers to those questions.
Sure. Yeah, the questions received, one was just to understand, I believe, the difference between the force main aspect of it and the pump station aspect, which Deputy Director Sun can speak more to. And the second was whether this project scope includes moving the force main facility, which I believe that was the question. And the answer to that is it's identifying the concepts or the options so that when that site is developed, the information is there for what the developer would need to do in moving that main pipe part of the structure, not the pump station, but the pipe structure. So Louis can speak more to that.
Yes, and the sewer line and the force main basically is part of the collection system, and it transports the wastewater to and out of the pump station. And the pump station portion is just a physical facility where we have pumps, and that would lift and pump the wastewater, at a collection point within that facility and continue it on to Clara Creek Water Recycling Plant.
And I guess I should add, to be more specific, this has nothing to do with the lines that feed into the pump station that come underneath Beach Boulevard. This has to do with pipes that angle beneath the 2212 Beach Boulevard site toward Palmetto and being able to move those. Is that correct, Louis?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like the assumption is they would need to be moved when construction of a development happens on that site. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct.
Well, I think that would depend on what the development plan was for the site. So, if it, but most likely to open up maximum flexibility, it probably should be moved. But
I see. Looks like there's a question from Councilmember Vaterlos.
And is it true that that pump station will remain there regardless? So this work that's being done will feed the pump station that's going to remain there? Is that true?
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions from council?
Okay, this will also is a design phase to help improve the odor there, correct? For the existing neighborhood and neighbors?
Correct. Yeah, that was one of the main drivers is really the odor control for the pump station.
So if we were to say no to this, this is going to delay letting the neighborhood have fresh air and no odors from the pump station to make it longer down the road, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we really want to get this design work going because we want to be able to move efficiently for the marketing of the site for its future development.
Can you also clarify for our public speaker the difference between this project and the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project, and if they coincide, or so I think there was a little confusion about that.
I guess I'm not really clear. I mean, now that we've explained that the pump station work doesn't have anything to do with the pipes feeding into the pump station, there's no relationship between the Beach Boulevard sanitary sewer infrastructure and this project, which is more focused on the pump station. But I didn't state that very articulately, so perhaps Deputy Director Sun or Director Peterson can speak more to that.
Yeah, I was just looking for simple language, Thanks.
Yes, I think City Manager Woodhouse explained it very clearly. This particular focus on the Sharp Park pump station is just on odor control. There's no involvement in terms of any sewer line relocation or any work involving sewer line. We're just focusing primarily on odor control. And we're also going to be conducting a noise study to potentially reduce any noise in the pump station.
Director Peterson, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Lisa Peterson, Director of Public Works. I was actually just going to say exactly what Deputy Director Sun said, that we have had some complaints also regarding noise and from that pump station. So something else we're going to be looking at and taking care of for the residents that are around that area with this project is also assessing any kind of noise issues, also along with the odor control. So I think this is a project that's really going to be welcomed by residents around that area, and we're looking forward to moving forward with it. Thanks.
Other questions? Councilmember Big Stick. did you have a question?
No, Mary asked it better than I could have. Thank you.
Okay, I did have a question. If there are no further questions from council. I just wanted to verify the funding source for this work and to clarify that this is a design project. If I understand it, this is a design project at this point. We're not doing the work yet. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Yes.
And it's the wastewater enterprise fund as the funding source.
Okay. If there aren't further questions, I'll entertain a motion on consent agenda.
I move that we approve consent item number 7.
Second.
Item number 7 moved by O'Neill and seconded by Beer. Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Butterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And agenda item number 7 passes unanimously.
All right, turning our attention to consent agenda item 8.
Yeah, I'll just turn it over to Assistant City Manager Wermeister to speak to this.
Good evening, Council. This is an annual report that is statutorily required to report on progress in compliance with our housing element. And as this, City Manager Woodhouse mentioned, this does have a hard due date of April 1st. So that is when it is due to be submitted to the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Also reiterating that this is a report on progress of existing policies in our housing element. It is not an adoption or endorsement of new or future policies on housing that will be coming as we develop our next housing element in this next year or so. And what this, just in summary, this report discusses our RENA progress in meeting our current RENA, which is 413 units. And we have built over this last cycle 96 new units in Pacifica. The report also indicates that although we don't have a lot of units that we're building, we did make good progress last year in developing ADUs in particular. They have made up quite a bit of our increased units counts. And the report also provides progress on some of the policy items. And I wanted to note that the Casa Pacifica item is in there, and we did not do anything in this last reporting period because they have already, we have already in previous reporting periods confirmed that their affordability covenants are and agreements are continuing into the future. So this is a very specific report as far as timeline. It's on last year, 2020 progress. And I also wanted to note that although unfortunately the state law doesn't allow us to count it for RENA, I do want to acknowledge the significant achievement that we've made in the Marymount project, which is regulatory agreement to preserve 168 units of affordable housing. And that has happened over this last few months. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council members, questions on item 8? Councilmember Big Stick.
I have a brief procedural question. I have a brief procedural question and then a question about the item, if I may. I was confused during communications, public communications about consent, whether they have an opportunity. Is that portion there just to ask them, for them to ask to pull an item, or is that their one opportunity to speak upon the item?
That is their opportunity to speak on the consent calendar in total. If the council pulls an item, then generally they will allow the public to comment on that particular item. So in this case, the council approved items 1 through 6. There's no further discussion on items 1 through 6. The council concluded the discussion on item 7. There's no further comment on that, but there can be additional comment on item 8 since that is not concluded yet.
Thank you very much. And just to follow on with what the speakers seem to be indicating when they were talking about item 8, I was wondering if perhaps Tina could briefly tell us when the new housing element will be underway and what participation will look like, just very briefly.
So the staff has been working on, with our consultant, has been working on putting together the work plan and the public engagement for the housing element. So I don't have a specific answer right now. I do know that we are working to have community conversations similar to the Let's Talk Housing that we had in Pacifica that was mentioned this weekend. They're actually borrowing or stealing our Let's Talk Housing tagline. And so we think that that's going to be a countywide conversation that's going to be broken up into several meetings by geography. So we did attend a meeting today, and we are anticipating that those meetings will occur either later this month or in April. So although the outreach is going to be much more robust, that is, we're having some general countywide conversations very soon with the public.
Thank you.
I think there is someone in the public who would like to speak on this item. So I'm going to go ahead and go to that, reopen public comment. Deputy City Clerk.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Our first speaker is Christine Bowles, who will be followed by Cliff Lawrence. Please state your name for the record when you're unmuted.
Hi, this is actually Robert Bowles, not Christine. We share a computer. Sorry about that. I think I have a point of order if I understand the rules right. We expected to have public comment on item number 7 in the consent calendar, and it was completely passed over. That was, unfair to the public to not allow them to speak on this issue and to just ignore the fact that, we're all sitting there waiting to make our comments. I think you're out of order carrying on like this, and you need to go back to item 7 and have a public comment session. Thank you.
I see 4 additional hands. I'm presuming they are on item 8. So we'll proceed with public comment on item 8, and then I'll have a question for the city attorney.
Cliff Lawrence, you're our next speaker. You'll be followed by Sue Degree. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, this is Cliff Lawrence, Fairmount West. When I raised this question earlier, it wasn't so much about the policy as the city manager indicated that he perceived this as about, to me, it's about performance. And I think that keeping this on the consent calendar denies the public to know what our performance is in terms of meeting our goals. One of the other things I saw in this, and I'm probably not reading it right, but I saw references to projects that are not approved and highly contested. And it appeared, I could be wrong, that those numbers are being included as our progress. So my contention is the public deserves the right to evaluate the city's progress on this. And I believe it should be pulled and held at a public hearing. You got till April 1st.
To degree, you'll speak next, followed by Michael Vernaza. Please state your name for the record.
Sue Degree, for item 8 regarding affordable housing, I'd like to say this before something happens in the future and I can't do it. Regarding affordable housing, I think we need a definite definition of what we're talking about. And also would like you as leaders to look into set-asides for those who have a developmental disability. They do have supports from the state, wraparound services that the city and the developers don't have to pay for, but access to affordable housing in the areas where they live is almost nil. So if you could put that on the top burner, that would be very helpful. And ADUs, unfortunately, I'm not clear on, are ADUs allowed to be affordable, or are they all high income type of things? And again, a definite definition so we understand what we're talking about. When we say something is affordable, really like to know what would be the income of a person would have to be able to even consider affordable. Thank you.
Michael Vernaza, followed by Aaron Macias. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name is Michael Vernaza, part of the Lindemar community. I was just more of a simple question, I think. Who is the consultant that aids the city in the specific plan that was mentioned?
Aaron Macias.
Go ahead.
Aaron Macias, followed by Remy Tan. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Erin Macias calling. I also wanted to expand upon Mr. Bowles' comment about a point of order. I think the city attorney should be consulted. If there's something that's on the consent item and it is to be continued, the public should have the right to comment on that before it is continued by the council. I would like to, hopefully that would be discussed briefly before it's continued. Thank you. That's all.
Remy Tan, followed by Kathleen Courtney. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Ramy Tan, architect and resident of Manor. I do want to concur with the other speakers from the public that this housing issue needs to be the spreadsheet really needs to be made a lot clearer. You know, the total amount of housing, you know, what's market rate, what is affordable, you know, and what level of affordability, and also the status of the project. Is it existing? Is it under construction? Is it approved? You know, etc. I mean, the chart really doesn't tell us anything. And I concur with Robert Bowles and the last speaker, Aaron Macias, that these, some of these items need to come off consent calendar, especially critical items like the sewer treatment plant. Thank you.
Kathleen Courtney. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, it's Kathleen Courtney. I might be speaking at the wrong time though. I apologize. Is this open comment? I'm so sorry.
We're having a discussion on item 8 only on the consent agenda right now, which was pulled from the consent agenda and has to do with the annual progress report on the implementation of the 2015 to 2023 housing element of the general plan.
Okay, copy you, and I greatly apologize. I'll raise my hand later. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Michael Vernaza has his hand raised again.
I wasn't sure. That's why I interrupted, and I felt bad that I interrupted Aaron Macias because I wasn't sure if he had completed his comments or if he dropped off.
All right, I will allow him to speak again at this time.
Thank you. Is my audio coming through? I wasn't sure if anyone even heard my question.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure. I didn't know if you had other things to state. So
I
Why don't you
have,
go ahead and restate your question?
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. My main question first was probably fairly simple is who's a consulting firm that aids in the housing element development with the city? And second, is there legal, and this might be something for council, but what is the control legally for affordable housing in these, I'd say, in these plans? Is it a Section 8 type scenario, or are there other avenues or, I guess, approaches to somehow controlling the cost when you have other elements in the market like Airbnbs or whatnot? Thank you for taking my question.
Sure. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question for Tina.
I want to just double check. I'm sorry, I was writing notes that we're finished with public comment.
There are no other hands raised at this time, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to council and Councilmember O'Neill. You have the floor.
Yeah, I have a question for Tina. Tina, so given what we have tonight is a report that needs to be placed by April 1st to the state of California, correct? That's the deadline?
Yes.
The information on that report is not going to change whether we vote on it tonight or we vote on it later after a full public hearing, correct?
That's correct. And I wanted to add, just to clarify to your question, and one of the speakers brought it up, that the report is, the form of the report, which I agree is difficult to read, is given to us by the state. That is not a spreadsheet that staff created. That's the form that we're required to report on.
Okay, so would it be, I'm just having this for discussion, would it be okay if the council was to approve this tonight on and vote on it so it can be sent to the state, but then we ask the city manager to schedule a full public consideration for it on the next council meeting? The reason being is this information is not going to change whether we vote on it now or on March 22nd.
So just to repeat what I think I heard, just to make sure I have the direction correctly, would be to go ahead and act on the annual progress report tonight, and then bring back more of a education or study session, not only on this housing element, but what we're going to do in the future.
Well, not necessarily study session, but part of the agenda on March 22nd. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the information is not going to change, the report is not going to change, but the state requires this form to be in by its state deadline. So it's just to kind of facilitate the report, but then the information could be discussed, which will not change on March 22nd, and asked to have that agendized as an item. I'm just throwing that out for discussion for council.
No, I totally agree with that, because I would actually also like a more in-depth report so I can clearly understand everything. So that would be great. So I appreciate that, Council Member O'Neill.
City Manager Kevin Woodhouse, the question I would ask is, well, number one, the March 22nd agenda is a pretty large agenda currently, and we have a study session in advance of that with Senator Becker. But I guess, you know, there's a difference here about discussing the sort of policy issues that the housing element raises and just reporting out the facts of what has happened. And that's what the annual update does. So if we are to hold a discussion item on it, based on what I heard from comments tonight, there probably would be a lot of anticipation that the policy issues are going to be discussed about housing. And that's actually a work item that the council directed be on the work plan for next year when we update the housing element. So I would just seek more council direction about what the goal of that discussion would be for a future agenda item. And we need to look at how we fit that in, if at all possible, on the 22nd.
Okay, I guess I would maybe amend my suggestion then in terms of we go ahead, vote on this and to approve it so the report goes to the state on time. And then, you know, on another agenda, not the 22nd, if it's, you know, already a lengthy agenda, we have the full, we have the report and discussion by staff on the interpretation of this report.
And I also, through the mayor, if I may, I wanted to point out a couple things that I wanted to clarify. And one of the speakers mentioned that there were some undecided or, projects, potentially controversial projects on the list. And that's because that's a new requirement this year of HCD. They are now wanting to record and get some data on how many projects cities in general, not us specifically, they're getting the projects in, but the cities are not approving them. So this kind of gets to some of the teeth that they're starting to put into the legislation that was mentioned at goal setting. So they're really trying to get more data. So not only how many building permits are you issuing, but what was the density of the lot that you got a project in on? What was proposed? What did you actually approve? Because there's some concern that some cities are reducing density through their approval process. So that is why the public is seeing that. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, other questions from council or comments? Okay, then I have a couple questions. I'd like to know what the impact would be for the planning department and for the city manager and the city on delaying approval until the 22nd, even though we have a big agenda. I think there are lots of questions on this item, and I feel like staff has a point of view that the questions are not, the timing of those questions and the relationship of those questions to the overall discussion of housing and housing policy is not what this item is about. This item is about a required report on an existing housing element that we have to report annually. And it's like doing your taxes. Every year by a certain date, you have to provide this update. So the sense I get is that the public feels like they want to have a better chance to dig into this and understand it better, which I would like to honor. However, I don't want us to be late in meeting our deadline. And so if we can postpone the discussion, and then I have more to say on that, have a presentation in open session on this item to clarify better this spreadsheet that is so tiny and difficult to read, that members of the public had a hard time understanding. And I do agree it's challenging. So it would be work for staff to distill down to a more understandable explanation of what this, this spreadsheet means this spreadsheet means this. It would take some time, but this is clearly an area of interest, and it's clearly an area that isn't going away and one that is changing all the time. What Deputy Assistant City Manager Warmeister just said is that the housing department of the state is changing the requirements this time versus the last reporting period because they want to pull out more data. I think it would be useful for the public to hear and understand why, what does that mean? Because this is a lot of the day-to-day work that's very technical with the housing, with the planning department, but it's not something that the average citizen maybe understands. And certainly we know, affordable housing. Well, in what way? And one of the speakers asked, is that HUD? They understand what HUD is. Another speaker wanted an explanation of all the various types of affordability. So I feel like we're at a kind of a crossroads, and to be able to, as we move into the preparation of our next housing element, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to really just get some of these terms clarified. It will take time, but it's important. It's clearly important to the community. What does the rest of the council think?
I have my hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Please.
No,
go
I
ahead.
know. The report is done. The report had to do with what happened in the past. I agree with Mike. The information on the report isn't going to change. We can't do it on the 22nd because we're already full. So I think that we should approve it tonight and then have a different discussion after, because the information in this report is not going to change. Not now, not in April. So I understand the need for more in-depth information on this report. But I think we could pass it tonight and then move it back to the public.
Councilmember Big Stick and Mayor Pro Tem, what are your thoughts on that?
If the information's not going to change, I definitely agree that the community should have the opportunity to learn what all this means, to ask those deeper questions after it's been sussed out for them at a more expansive level. But I also can see passing it tonight since the information itself isn't going anywhere. If the 22nd has too much going on that agenda, then maybe the agenda after that, we could do a hour-long study session or some such. I definitely don't want to see too much time go by because clearly the community's chomping at the bit. But I feel like that strikes the right balance if sooner than later we get it out, and sooner than later we get it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think having a presentation at a later date will give the community an opportunity to see things. So like putting charts up on the screen so the community can actually see what we're talking about. Because it's very clear also that people are not getting the consent agendas in front. So they don't have it in front of them. Like we would have it in person. We would have the agenda, they would have it, the paper agenda in front of them. But they don't have that. And so having the opportunity to share screens and just see some information is what I am definitely looking for. And so I think we should pass it tonight and get the report in and then come back with some visuals and things that we can talk about.
Okay.
If I may, Mayor, I was going to ask Assistant City Manager Waremeister, just thinking about timing for a potentially like a study session about housing element, whether there's an upcoming milestone from ABAG related to the regional housing needs numbers that would be a good trigger time point for that discussion, or some such milestone that when something's sort of affirmed that it really makes sense to start the conversation about the housing element update.
So we do have the RENA schedule attached to the staff report. So it's just looking at that, and it just has generic spring 2021. I don't know that we'll have anything super quickly. I know that once the HCD approves the RENA methodology, then there's an entire appeal period of the final RENA numbers. So it's we already have a pretty good sense of what we'll get. So I don't know that there's going to be a milestone coming up in the next month or so.
For the public, could we please not use acronyms?
Sure.
I was just looking for the explanation of what that is.
The regional housing needs allocation, which is how many units, residential units we would be assigned to build over the next 8 years, starting in 2023.
And HCD.
the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Thank you.
An A bag.
The Association of Bay Area Governments.
And really quickly, one of the public people asked about the housing element consultant.
Yeah.
Sure. The consultant is Baird and Driscoll.
So it sounds like there's not necessarily a specific near term in the next couple of months milestone, but as the council deliberates on this, I would seek direction on sort of the time frame that we would work towards for a housing element 101 sort of study session discussion.
Mhm.
I was just going to suggest that we actually don't even have it as part of a regular meeting, but it's a special study session just on the housing. And if staff could structure it so it is the beginning of the dialogue of where we are, because we all seem to know through the grapevine that we're all on that the RENA number will be somewhere 16 to 1900, the numbers we've heard. So I think the public, we can tell the public, this is not the final number, but this is the range we've been told, so then that could be the milestone that the city manager was referring to. And we try to have that before the middle of April, just because, that's like a reference point.
Mm-hmm. And that, if I understand it, that final number isn't going to be determined and decided until the summer? And then the appeal period? Is that what you said, Tina?
So I don't have the detailed calendar in front of me, but yes, this summer, the appeals period will be open this summer. And then the regional housing needs allocation numbers will be finalized at the end of the year, this says.
Okay.
So can you guys help me understand, because I see two different things here. Like I see a study session on the housing element moving forward and the RENA numbers, and then I see an explanation about this report.
Well, I was figuring out they're all the same bailiwick, that this would be first of the study session. This would be the first report. You know what I mean? The first part of the study session. And then we go into what RENA numbers are, how different methodologies may be used by other cities and stuff. That's what I would kind of see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we would be answering the questions on this report. It would just be handled in a special meeting. So those that are really in tune with that issue can come.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, no,
So
that's great. I mean, I would love it if we would have that. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that, because I thought they were two very separate things, but the way you explain it makes sense to me.
Okay, so if we seem to have a consensus for what people said, so I was going to make a motion that we approve item number 8 on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
And then I just want to be sure staff is clear on what council said they want to do for disclosure to the public regarding this report.
Let's have a vote on the motion in second that's on the floor, and then we'll discuss that.
Okay.
So item number 8, moved to approve by Councilmember O'Neill with a second by Councilmember Big Stick. Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vadalas.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And item number 8 passes unanimously with a vote of 5-0.
And
Mayor Beckmeyer, before we move on into the remainder of the agenda, I'd like to interject a little bit about some of the comments that were made pertaining to points of order on item number 7.
We're not even there yet. I want to get to that too, but before we do that, I want to go back to Councilmember O'Neill's question, which I think is, does staff feel like they have enough information and direction from us around what we're looking for regarding this housing meeting? Is that what you were about to say, Mike?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Is that clear to you, city manager?
Yes, I wanted to, and Assistant City Manager Waremeister should weigh in bringing that session together. I guess one question is whether we need the consultant or should have the consultant present or not. And I know Councilmember O'Neill was suggesting a special meeting on a different night. Those are always, sometimes challenging to schedule. When we look at the agenda, does the council want it definitely on a standalone night, or is it potential for a light agenda? When we have a light council agenda, perhaps it could be on that, or a longer study session before a regular agenda, just to get.
I think any of those are fine. If it can be done on a regular council meeting night, I think that's fine.
So we'll look at all the options and see what we can figure out. Yeah, to make that happen. I heard the April timeframe mentioned, and I'll look to Assistant City Manager Waremeister about some of the planning department workload that we have coming up.
Yeah, so this is something that I'm viewing this as not only a deeper dive into the annual report, but also a kickoff with the public, so to speak, of our housing element. And this was something that we would have needed to do soon. So I think we're definitely going to need to shift some items around, but I think that the April timeframe is doable.
And I think in light of council goal setting having just occurred, and the fact that this item has been, affordable housing has been a council goal for a long time. It's just that we've got new information and more action and movement from the state as well to include. So as long as the presentation can please go into detail on the different explanations of affordable housing, defining affordable in light of that question that we had tonight around, is it HUD or what is it? I think that would be very helpful for the public to include in that. All right.
Great. So I think we have enough direction.
All set on this one then? Okay. Yes. I'm looking to council members. It looks like yes. Great. All right. Then back to you, city clerk and possibly city attorney on item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor Beckmeyer. There were a few comments made regarding points of order on item number 7 and public comments, and I just wanted to interject to clarify that public comments were held for the full comment period for items on the consent calendar prior to consent. So we had considered that comments on item number 7 had been concluded with the full comments on the consent calendar at that time.
And I think the question that was being raised by the public is from a point of order, and this is my city attorney question. Since we pulled the item, whether by council pulling it or a member of the public asking for it to be as he did, Mr. Kramer, should the council should the mayor have opened another public comment period, inviting the public to speak strictly on item 7?
Well, I would say that I agree with the city clerk. I was under the impression that public comment for item 7 had occurred. If there is belief by the public or the council that full public comment on item 7 did not occur, then what the council could do now is anybody voting in support of item 7, because that matter has actually concluded,
right,
could make a motion right now to reconsider item 7 with a second. And then if voted upon with a majority of the council, then the council could reconsider item 7, and then you could have, a new public comment period for item 7. And if there's any council members who are concerned with whether or not there was adequate public comment, then that would be my suggestion on how you solve that issue right here and right now.
Okay, and I would like to solve that issue right here and right now.
Mhm.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to reconsider item number 7.
I second.
Councilmember Big Stick,
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlas,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer,
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes. All right. Go ahead, sorry.
And sorry, now I have a point of order question. We finished item 8. Are we going to vote on item 8 now?
We voted on it,
We
didn't we?
voted on item 8.
Okay.
But we had public comment on item 8. Afterward, yeah,
We did.
yeah.
So item 7, we have reopened it. That means we have an opportunity for the public to comment, to raise questions, and we will undertake those questions. Deputy City Clerk?
We have one hand raised from the Bulls account. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Robert Bowles. Thank you so much for reconsidering item 7. I really appreciate that. For the future, it'd be really useful to tell the public exactly what they're doing. It was pretty clear to me, and I think to other people, that you were just asking us if we wanted to take something off the calendar, not if we wanted to make comments on the item. So here are my comments before I go any further. The multi-hazard risk assessment has been promised for weeks or months, and it's still not been finalized or made public. You're currently working on a seawall plan, which is somewhat controversial. It's not clear whether the seawall is going to go forward or not. You're also working on a Sharp Park specific plan. I don't know if that's been finalized. I don't think it has. We don't know if a hotel developer will even be interested in that site, especially if it has a pumping station on it, even if the odors have been solved. My point is that you've got a schematic plan for how to fix the problems. Why not just sit on that until these other issues are settled? Why spend another couple $100,000 on an issue that may go away? That site may never be developed for anything else. We may have to move all of that infrastructure on Beach Boulevard. So why spend the money now on developing very detailed construction drawings? That's my comment. Thank you.
Mayor Beckmeyer, we don't have any other hands raised for this item.
Okay, just want to restate, if anyone had anything else they wanted to say about item 7, either initially in their early comments on this item, or it came to mind in the meantime, and they would like to speak and share those thoughts or ask those questions, this is the time to do that. Item 7.
Mayor
Do not.
Beckmeyer, we have.
I see a hand. Okay.
Remy Tan, please state your name for the record.
Hi, Remy Tan, Pacific Manor. I concur with Robert Bowles that I think we need to look at this holistically and figure out what is going in that area before spending a lot of money on this. And it seems like looking at the last page of this item that there's been a significant amount of consulting fees paid out and a lot of study done. And I'm not sure if, it had considered any of the items that Robert Bowles mentioned. Thank you.
We've had one more hand raised, Mayor Beckmeyer.
I see it's the Bulls name. Is it a different person making a comment?
Yes, good evening, Council. This is Christine Bowles, and I'll be quick. I just want to add to Bob's comment. again, we're waiting for the multi-hazard risk assessment. That is supposed to evaluate all the infrastructure around the Beach Boulevard project, including this pump station. There may be other issues that we don't know about yet. Other infrastructure and sewage pipes that need to be moved. And again, I would encourage you to wait instead of continuing to spend more money on consultants to understand the entire project and the implications for all the infrastructure in the area, including this particular site. Thank you. I know we need to deal with the odor problems, and that's, you know, something for the neighbors, but the whole station may need to be moved. A developer may want to move it also. Again, I think we're short-sighted in not having a long-term plan for what we're actually doing with the area. Thank you.
Mayor Beckmeyer, there are no other hands raised.
All right, then I will close public comment and bring it back to council. And in as much as we have reopened item 7, we have an opportunity to make comments and ask questions ourselves. So do any council members have questions or comments? Mr. Councilmember O'Neill.
Just to kind of answer some of the comments from the public, when we did put out the RFPs for developing 2212 Beach Boulevard as a potential hotel site, we had over, I think it was somewhere around 7 or 8 proposals from different hotels to build there. So there was interest in the hotels. Now, granted, that was pre-COVID, and we do not know what the hotel market's going to be after COVID. So, but there was interest at that point in developing it. I also feel that the neighborhood there has had chronic odor problems for many decades. And I think if the city can take and try to alleviate that and save the people there 6-7 months, because we have the design in place, that's only fair to every citizen. I'm sure if some of the people that were there speaking had the odor problems there, they would be here saying, fix it. I want it fixed now. Noise and odor problems, okay? In regards to moving the sewer lines, et cetera, and the utilities there because of whatever hazards might be identified in that assessment, I think that's going to be so many, probably not millions. The last estimate I heard, and this was many years ago when I was first on council, was to move that pump station would be $8 to $9 million just by itself, because all the pipes funnel down. My understanding is the pipes go through there and pump it down to the Calera Creek plant. So in addition to that, you'd have whatever, and if the seawall isn't built and the houses disappear, that's going to be a whole legal quagmire that needs to have precedence and probably go to the Supreme Court. I don't know. So anyhow, I just don't think it would be fair to those neighbors and and residents in that area not to fix the odor, and if we can, try to alleviate the noise problem also.
Other questions or comments from council? Councilmember Big Stick? And then Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to make the comment that along with the neighbors who get to enjoy the odors and the sounds that go along with it, our pier is also a major draw from folks from outside our community, and just kind of keeping an eye also on tourism and our economy. I would imagine that will be a much more appealing stop for people who want to spend money in our town if they don't have to also enjoy those aromas when they come to visit. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, can somebody address the multi-hazard risk assessment? There's folks saying they're waiting for it. So what does that mean? Or, do we have one coming?
Thank you, Lisa Peterson, Director of Public Works. So that is something that is moving forward. As I think everybody knows there were quite a number of questions that also came up from the public. I mean, a substantial number that staff and the consultant have been working on, and all of those are going to be, released at the same time. I believe that initially it was thought it was going to be released at the beginning of this week, and I think it's probably within, I would say, the next week, because it's something that those questions, or we have a very engaged public with a lot of great questions, and those had to be really reviewed and looked at and answered, correctly. So that should be getting out soon. And just one other thing that I wanted folks to know, that this is something that the city is doing all the time in the wastewater division. We are looking at our collection infrastructure. So this is, separate from the Beach Boulevard Infrastructure Resiliency Project. We have to make sure that our infrastructure for our collection system is working properly. And that's why we have things such as in 2018, when we had the pump station condition assessment report that was completed. And in that report, it said, you need to look at Sharp Park. There's issues with that. And there's issues not just, with the odor that we talked about, but also there is issues with grease and grease buildup that can really be detrimental and cause a failure, and also issues with the wet well. So there is a number of issues at that Sharp Park pump station that need to be addressed in order to make sure that we can continue on having our, award-winning collection, system that, we got an award for last year because we do such a great job in keeping the whole system in great shape. And this is just another measure that we're doing to make sure that, we're keeping the public safe and the environment safe around the Sharp Park area.
Thank you so much, Director Peterson. I really appreciate your explanation and the work that you're doing on all of the questions, because there are tons of them coming in. So thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right. It seems to me that we voted on this item. We have reopened it. So does that mean, City Attorney, that we re-vote as well?
Yes, yes. The action that you took on items 7 originally has been rescinded. So now we need to take a new motion and action.
All right.
We approve item number 7 on the consent calendar.
Second.
And the motion to approve item number 7 on the consent calendar by Councilmember Big Stick and seconded by Councilmember O'Neill. I'll call the roll call vote. Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vadalas.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And item number 7 passes with a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, everyone. All right. We would now move to oral communications. This would be for items not on the agenda. And I'm going to read a little statement. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the City Council on any issue that is not on the agenda. Any person wishing to address the council shall be recognized by the mayor during oral communications, provided, however, that during the oral communications portion of the agenda, only items not on the agenda for that meeting may be addressed. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body and not to any member thereof. Council members shall not enter into debate with speakers under oral communications. A maximum time of 3 minutes will be allowed for any speaker. Pursuant to Pacifica Municipal Code Title II, Chapter 1, Sections 2-1.118, any person making impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks, or who becomes boisterous while addressing the council, shall be called to order by the presiding officer, and if such conduct continues, may, at the direction of the presiding officer, be ordered barred from the further audience before the council during the meeting. All right, so we will open oral communications. This is the time to speak on any item. We did have any item not on the agenda tonight. We did have some questions in the early part of the meeting as to, is this the right time to speak about this? And I said, no, you'll be notified when it's oral communications. That is now. So if the item is not on tonight's agenda, and just for refreshing, the items on tonight's agenda have to do with an affordable housing agreement and appointments to the Beautification Advisory Committee, Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee, and Planning Commission. So if it's not about those things, now is the time for oral communications. And I will turn it over to Deputy City Clerk Brooks.
Madam Mayor and council members, our first speaker tonight for oral communications is Sherry Stoddard, will be followed by Kathleen Courtney. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Sherry Stoddard, and thank you for listening to me, Madam Mayor and City Council mayors. I've written all of you emails, and I appreciate some of you that have gotten back to me with Christian Murdoch's response. I do understand that you're not allowed to comment on this, but I would like to talk to you a little bit about Cape Breton Drive. I've, grown up there, and my mom still resides there for the last 30 something years. She's in her golden years. We went from Ortega Court by Cabrillo up Lindemar Boulevard and then to the back of the valley. I mean, she's earned this house, and this house is quiet, it's sanctuary, it's safe, And for me, I'm really worried. I'm losing sleep over this. I feel like this church that's moving in has been not very truth forward with you on their TUP application, where it says change in noise and vibration levels. Resty Lazaro, the minister, checked no. Where it says change in ground contours, he checked no. Where it says relationship to a larger project or series of projects, he checked no. This church is known for their cathedrals and their building, and that 110 acres back there is such a historic piece of property that I know you know what I'm talking about. And when you apply for a TUP and it moves into an SUP and then a PD and then there goes the neighborhood. I feel like, just the parking up there alone over the weekend, they had over 30 cars, and that's just for the beginning of they're not even supposed to be starting on this and moving the pews in there or parking on the street right there. You have multiple families living in up there because of COVID, and people need that street parking. And also you can't pass two cars on that road. I hope you go up there and I hope you drive those streets because they're so narrow and they're the last street in the back of the valley. I mean, I can't tell you how much this upsets me. I really hope that this gets locked down like the quarry and the bypass. I really think we need to review this and do like a EIR, maybe do another traffic report, because I really don't think it's understood. My mom saw the first cop car in ever, and she watched it through the kitchen window go up the cul-de-sac and literally turn around and come back down. So I don't know if they're reporting as far as how loud it is up there with the electric saws that she's hearing and the noise level that starts at 8 in the morning, goes into the afternoons. And this is just the beginning. Imagine 8 meetings a week that they're proposing. It's just not going to be quiet. I don't understand. Sorry. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much.
We'll hear next from Kathleen Courtney, followed by Sue Degree. Please state your name for the record.
Hey there, it's Kathleen Courtney, and I'm very excited to let everybody know that we are going to launch, we meaning Pacifica's Economic Development Committee is going to launch Pacifica Beach Bites Bingo. And that is going to be coming out this week. And what this will hopefully do is encourage all of our community and people outside of Pacifica to come and taste our tasty wares. So basically what this will mean is that Everybody that gets bingo will be turning in their card, and all of it will be explained on the rules, and we have a website for it. And then at right before city council meeting every Monday, we will gather all the names, and then the name of the winner will be drawn at the city council meeting. And that winner will win a gift card to any Pacifica establishment. So the point of this Beach Bites bingo is to see that we can get more boots on the ground and get them into the restaurants and to go, obviously, and deliveries, but also to have a bit of excitement around town, have another thing that we can all gather behind in order to support our restaurants and small businesses. And the thing that's really cool is that the prize that they're going to win is going to be a gift certificate to one of our small businesses. So restaurants and businesses alike will be benefiting from this. So this will all be announced through papers and emails, and our city weekly email will include more details. But I'm just thrilled because the Pacifica Economic Development Committee has been working really hard over the past, I guess it's been 5 months since I've been in it, 4 or 5 months. And we meet every week, almost every single week, to figure out what we can do and launch now, not later, now, to help our folks. So this is something that I'm hoping everybody is going to be excited about and participate in. And stay tuned. You're going to see announcements coming your way and a little something fun to look forward to in future city council meetings. Yay. Thank you.
Sue Degree, followed by Suzanne Moore. Please state your name for the record.
Sue Degree, thank you. This is an ongoing concern which COVID has made even more confirmed, and that is for the city to enable all of its residents to have a timely notification of the various serious things that are going on in our city, dealing with planning and city council, and that they have the ability to be fully engaged. And that's a lot harder than it sounds. So really want to make this a big thing. It's COVID has made it even more painful, I would say, but definitely more clear that we really need to do something about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne Moore, followed by Aaron Wood. Please state your name for the record.
Suzanne Moore, Manor District resident. I and other members of Pacifica Housing for All recently met with Supervisor Horsley to discuss options for safe parking and transitional housing for Pacifica's unhoused. Supervisor Horsley repeated that the county is ready to support these efforts if City Council reaches out to them. Council, please follow through. Council member Sue Vadalos suggested we utilize the San Francisco RV Resort for safe parking. This site is ideal since it provides many services that mean rest, mean safety, mean access to electricity and laundry. This, along with case management, would provide that important path to permanent housing. The county recently purchased other motels for the unhoused. I am grateful that Half Moon Bay will allow some of Pacific's homeless to go to Coastside Inn, but Pacifica can do its part to help folks here, where they work, where they have community connectedness. Transitional housing builds skills so that a placement in permanent housing will be successful. Life skills, social skills, stabilization of chronic health and mental health conditions can help our unhoused live independently and achieve permanent housing. Please work with the county to identify, purchase, and find an operator for transitional housing here in Pacifica. Homelessness has increased due to the economic downturns from COVID. We can follow other successful models and help people get housed. Let's do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Wood, followed by Michael Vernazza. Please state your name for the record.
Aaron Wood.
Go ahead.
I live in the south end of the regularly gridlocked Lindemar Valley, so INC is a concern for me. INC is a large global entity that makes the news when they host gatherings. One article stated 135 policemen to secure the gathering. Estimated crowd, 20,000. The gathering snarled traffic in some nearby areas as most of the 250 buses transporting the participants of the event parked along the road. There were also 50 enforcers to man the traffic, and a fire truck and ambulance was put on standby for any emergency. From the TUP, the proposed use is going to be for church gatherings. This would be the district office for the church. From the INC website directory, the District of Northwest California is Alameda, Antioch, Burlingame, Castro Valley, Concord, Daly City, Gilroy, Hayward, Hercules, Monterey, Mountain View, Oakland, Redwood City, Salinas, San Francisco, San Jose, San Leandro, San Pablo, Santa Rosa, Shoshone, Wyoming, South San Jose, and Union City. From the project plans, I can see below the parking analysis, there's some notes. Note 3 says existing covered arena structure is open air without doors or windows. Note 4 says they will provide assistive listening to the system in accordance with section 11B. I don't understand this process. If code enforcement was unable to locate the fixed seating they had photo evidence of, shouldn't city officials have returned the application fee for noncompliance according to Article 33 of use permits, section 9-4-3303 A, B, and C? Thank you for your time. That's all.
Thank you.
Michael Vernasa, followed by Cindy. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, hi, Michael, excuse me, Michael Vernazza here over in Lindemar. Wanted to just acknowledge the fact that we are trying to get that property developed on the corner of Adobe and Lindemar. Just curious if there are reasons for the developer to, not take action or move forward. And just wanted to offer any sort of assistance or help in starting to get these, I'd say, more intelligent projects started, because obviously we need the property tax revenue to help our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy, followed by Anita Reese. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, we can hear you. I mean, we can't hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, for your time. I was told by one of your council members that if something happens there, that we should call immediately and to report it. But the code enforcer does not work on the weekend. How are we supposed to call or respond or monitor and report what's going on if there's nobody to report to? And if they disregard the stop work order, who are we supposed to call? We call the police, they drive by and they leave. I understand they're digging right now with a bulldozer. They start all day on the weekends. I know the code enforcer does not work on the weekends. There's so much dust and debris flying in the air due to the wind back here, and they're just digging and digging and digging. I thought they weren't permitted to do that. How can they dig without a work permit? So I just don't understand what's taking so long with the permit and why if the environmental report was ever done. And I thought it was impossible to continue to work if you didn't have a work permit. So those are my questions. It's like, who are we to call if they have a stop work order, and nobody answers? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anita Reese, followed by Aaron Macias. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, Anita Reese with the Pacifica Resource Center. I want to first thank the City Council and City staff for your work over the weekend on goal setting for the next year. I know it was a huge amount of your time and effort to get that moving. I also wanted to thank the city and the community for your ongoing support while we continue to support folks who are struggling to recover from the impact of COVID. Our office does continue to be open to the public on Monday and Tuesday mornings, Wednesday and Thursday afternoons, and Fridays 9 to 1. During all other times, our regular office hours, we are available by phone, and we expect to open more office hours in April or May after San Mateo County moves to the orange tier and more of our staff get access to the vaccine. Our grocery program continues weekly at the American Legion Hall at 555 Buell on Wednesdays. If you or someone you know needs groceries, please contact PRC to sign up for an appointment or to pick up groceries at our grocery drive-through. Otherwise, please go to the American Legion after 3:30 and we'll serve you as quickly as we can. PRC continues to help folks who are unable to pay their rent or mortgage. To maximize support for renters who are behind on their rent due to COVID, we are encouraging folks to wait to apply for the state and federal funds administered through LISC, Local Initiatives Support Corporation. We expect those funds to become available on or after March 15th. Please feel free to contact PRC for more information or go to housingiskey.com for updates. For folks who apply for this funding, they could get up to a year's worth of rent paid if property owners are willing to take 80% of what is owed from April 2020 through March 2021. Stuff is still being determined right now, so that could change, but we're hopeful that that will start on March 15th. We're also continuing our Unhoused on the Coast outreach work. Please continue to contact our UC Outreach staff by email at ucoutreach@pacresourcecenter.org or by calling Outreach Specialist Daniel Gardner at 650-575-4861 or Marlon Morales at 650-387-4458 if you know or see someone who's living on the streets, in an encampment, or in a vehicle. And if you or someone you know needs help preparing or filing your taxes, please contact PRC by phone or email at taxes@pacresourcecenter.org. We are scheduling appointments to drop off materials and we'll be going over returns over the phone before e-filing. Whether you need groceries, emergency financial assistance for rent, mortgage, or other critical needs, access to homeless services, need your taxes prepared, or information about resources in general, please contact PRC at 650-738-7470 by email at info@pacresourcecenter.org or on our website at pacresourcecenter.org. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erin Macias, followed by Marjorie Lovell. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Erin Macias of Lindmar. Mayor, council, and staff. First, I'd like to just take a moment and say thank you for your service to our community. You might want to call the fire department because it sounds like you're putting out a lot of fires at the moment. I really appreciate the energy and the effort that you have put forward to address these issues and take them all seriously. First, I'd like to echo the comments by Erin Wood. I think she made some really important points. I'd like to discuss the property at 650 Cape Breton. That is something that is before the Planning Commission, and the seriousness of what they are doing on that property right now cannot be underestimated. It was a full-blown construction site with hammering, saws, grading, and I understand the city has issued a stop work order, which I'm very happy to hear. I'd also like to mention that this project is not in alignment with the city general plan. The general plan needs to be updated, but the one that we're operating off of is the one that we use, and this project is not aligned to it in any way whatsoever. I'd also like to mention that, police and code enforcement need to work in collaboration. And when a call was placed on Saturday for a complaint and the police department drives up and makes a loop in the circle and doesn't make contact with the people doing the work, the residents get frustrated and feel that the city is not working on their behalf. So the outcome of that was a slightly outward stance with video cameras and photos that were then submitted to the city showing the scope of the work that's being performed. The code enforcement officer, if she cannot be proactive and go and actually inspect the property, then maybe it's time for her to retire. And we need to find someone who is more suited to do the work of that position. If there is a photograph of pews being delivered, the code enforcement officer has every right to go onto the property and say, please show me where these are stored. Because from what we are understanding is that they are actually using those actively, and they're not just stored, they're actually performing services on the back of the property. So I think that the city needs to do some more investigation. I also had a question today regarding, the scope and nature of the work and the liability of the city. So if the church members or their employees are injured on a parcel doing work that is not permitted by the city, is there liability at the city level for being sued for allowing that to continue without intervening? The joke is in California, you need a permit if you sneeze. We need to follow through with our codes and enforce them in all ways before they're allowed to proceed with anything on this property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marjorie Lovell, please state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Marjorie Lovell, and I'm a property owner in Sharp Park. And I also wanted to speak out against the proposed development of the large church at 650 Cape Breton. And absolutely to agree with the words spoken by Aaron Wood and Aaron Macias, I'm in absolute agreement. I just think this is a very inappropriate use of the land. That site has no safe evacuation route. It's isolated, it's rugged. When I was in college, I worked summers as a firefighter, which was a great job until I worked on a controlled burn that came very close to killing the entire crew. And what I remember about that controlled burn is that as we approached the site and looked at where we were going to be working that day, every one of us could see that it was poorly designed. There was not a good escape route, rule number one in firefighting. The terrain was extremely steep and rugged. Whoever planned it, you could predict that this was going to go out of control. And sure enough, it did. And 3 of my friends suffered permanent injuries. Fortunately, there were no deaths. But that experience is burned into my memory. And here in Pacifica, there is a risk of fire. And each year with climate change, it gets worse and worse. The last couple of summers, we've seen what fires can do. That area doesn't have turnarounds. The roads do not, it's simply the structure does not support that kind of development. And what I'm really scared about is that these kinds of projects with lots of money and people who are very influential have a tendency to just get pushed through, just like that controlled burn. And even when you can see very predictable hazards and risks to the community, that this project's just going to get shoveled through. And I would like to state very strongly that I do not think this makes any sense whatsoever. It's inconsistent with the Pacifica General Plan. My main concern is my fears about fire and the idea of putting this kind of a structure up there. But I also think on every other level, it's just inconsistent. This is for wildlife, for the community itself, the people that live in that area. I just see no evidence supporting approval of this project, and I'm very fearful that it's going to get shoved through. And I'm appealing to you to.
Thank you, Ms. Lovell, for your comments.
Thank you. You have another hand raised from Remy Tan. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Remy Tan, Pacific Banner. Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council for your time. I just wanted to shout out to the fire and rescue joint services that we had a couple weekends ago. A lady and her dog were rescued off of the beach behind the Manor Safeway and off the rocks there. So it was really lucky, and the response was pretty quick. Coast Guard came out there, and I think San Mateo county fire came out and actually did the rock rescue. But I take walks there, every other day, on that beach, and noticed that they just finished the beach access down by the near the senior center there, and that beach access is signed, to watch out for the sneaker waves and the undertow. But the access that's behind the post office does not have any signage, and there's an access between the RV park and the storage area that also doesn't have any signage warning of the dangerous conditions. And I've seen, people try to sneak by the revetments and then, got caught like the lady did. And just today, there was a guy that was climbing down, in the area between the RV park and the storage area. So, signage would be, go a long way to kind of warn people how dangerous the conditions is. Also, I noticed there's things that are falling off in that area where the storage is. I think there's a couple of buildings right on the edge of the cliffs that probably need to be taken care of before the building falls on somebody. And hopefully someday that whole area, north of the trailer park and where all that storage is will be converted into good visitor serving commercial. We can use temporary pop-up stores like they do in Hayes Valley, to deal with the erosion. And it'd be nice to connect the cliffside trail that kind of ends right at the edge of the trailer park or the RV park, and it should be continued, through the trailer park and the storage area someday. That would be nice. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. All right, council. It's time for council communications. Councilmember Big Stick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I'll start by just saying once again to those folks who were kind enough to call in about the Cape Breton property, we hear you. We know it's terribly frustrating that usually the majority of the feedback you're probably getting from us is we hear you and we get to find out together. But we're hearing you, staff is hearing you. Keep writing us, keep showing up at the meetings and letting us know what's going on. And it's all a big process that is going to be frustrating to the point of the lack of communication. But if we're communicating nothing else to you, I want to make sure we're communicating to you that we hear you and staff really is following up with what you're telling us. That being said, I actually get to meet with code enforcement tomorrow and learn a little bit more about code enforcement. And to one of the questions that was asked, maybe during staff communications, if city manager could speak a little to how code enforcement works on the weekends, that might be helpful. Also, I was delighted to hear Kathleen Courtney talking about the Beach Bites bingo. So now I'll transition into the more fun stuff. I know we have a lot of people on the line. It might also be helpful if we hear a little bit more about how to get on the Connect with Pacifica mailing list for people who aren't already on that list. Personally, I ate at Goodfellas quite a bit this week. So that's the restaurant I'm highlighting. And I find myself eating again over the course of the 2 weeks back at the places I already ate, Pacifica Brewery and Breakers. But this week I've spent a lot of time at Goodfellas. This time of year I don't eat much meat. And Goodfellas has some killer fried artichoke hearts. They have a basil dressing that is wonderful for their salad. And they make a darn good eggplant parmesan. So that's where I spend a lot of my time when I'm eating. I got to spend a lot of my time with my fellow council members over the last 2 weeks, whether it was the various committee interview meetings or goal setting over the last couple days. I got to know my fellow councilors more and had a good time doing it. And looking forward to working with this group of people as things are coming up. Meetings that I was not with you all for. We had a Peninsula Clean Energy meeting on the 25th. A new chair was elected. That was Rick DeGoya of Atherton, and Vice Chair Donna Colson of Burlingame was elected also. The Citizens Advisory Committee is taking applications. So if anyone wants to be on the Citizens Advisory Committee of Peninsula Clean Energy, check out the website. We talked about adjustments to the budget in light of shortfalls due to COVID, and coming up with some creative ways to get the accounting done to make sure everything's kosher. And we passed the 2021 legislative platform. There were 8 points for that platform. Amongst those were getting rid of carbon, being monetarily transparent, being good neighbors, and ultimately retaining as much freedom of choice as we go forward as we can. So after that, I had a PRC liaisoning assignment. I got to be at that board meeting where new members were elected: Elizabeth Bredall, Stan Lowell, and Archie Juden. They talked a lot about getting people money for rent support. Anita was talking about it earlier. Bottom line, if you need help with rent, by all means, call up the PRC now. They are just now starting to become aware of all those monies available to help you with rent. So reach out. Tax preparation season is getting underway. So again, if you need help with tax prep, reach out to the PRC. Oh, I learned from the chief who was there at the meeting that our police department should be fully vaccinated by mid-March. So that's good news. And also they have that Mother's Day fundraiser coming up where you buy a Mother's Day card and the money goes to the PRC. It's a great program they have yearly. And I think they might not have had the opportunity to have it last year because that's when COVID hit. But this year it looks like it's going to be up and running. So get your mom a card. It's the right thing to do. And in so doing, you'll also be supporting folks who really need the help. Last bit on my agenda, I was in attendance at the Planning Commission meeting where Vice Chair Berman was bringing up something that I often brought up myself, which was about the Cypress Point development in Moss Beach. And I was delighted that she reminded me this time around. And so apparently the Coastal Commission is going to be hearing about Cypress Point on the 12th. So that's just a few days away. Pardon me. My brain right now does not like doing math. That's on Friday. So Friday is the Coastal Commission meeting. Cypress Point is a 71 unit affordable housing complex they want to build. And right now they're getting the Coastal Commission permission to be able to update the zoning there so that they can do that. So if you have interest in affordable housing on the coast, or even if you have other perspectives you'd like to share, the Coastal Commission meeting is going to be happening on Friday. The meeting starts at 9, but it's like the 14th item on the list, so it might actually come up closer to afternoon. But by all means, please show up for that one. And that's what I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council members, Councilmember Valverlos.
Okay, first, I would like to thank everyone for attending our goal setting meeting, not just all of us. The staff did an amazing job. We had 35 public speakers, which was excellent number of people. And I wrote down everything people said. So I would like to thank you all for your comments that day. I attended the Fog Fest board meeting, but I have asked someone to come forward from Fog Fest to speak about that. So I won't. I attended the COVID Recovery Council with San Mateo County, and we discussed vaccines and school opening. We do have the superintendent speak about the school opening, and on our next meeting, we're going to speak on the small businesses. I went to the Council of Cities meeting where we had a presentation by San Carlos on what they're doing with their business district. They're entirely changing the business district, and it was interesting. And I attended the county meeting where they give us updates on the virus, and I did not bring any statistics today. So I'm done. Thanks.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yeah, since the last council meeting, I haven't had any very many formal meetings, but I did attend the airport noise conference via Zoom, and it wasn't what I expected. They had some interesting topics, which I'll try to follow up with about airport noise, and a lot of them were in areas where airports are like in the middle of the desert in the flatlands. And I guess one of our issues is the fact that it is basically in a bowl, right, between the coast range and the mountains, Mount Diablo on the other side, and whatever. So that was an interesting part I hadn't really heard before. Also connected with one of the council members in Half Moon Bay and with commute.org, and we're going to be doing a Zoom conference, the three of us, to discuss doing a survey of Samtrans, because one of the issues that's always been happening is Samtrans will run a shuttle up Highway 1 and drop them off at Colma. And I have been saying, well, Colma is not the only place people go to work in the peninsula. They also go south, that maybe they should drop them off in Millbrae and have a shuttle go direct to Millbrae. So we're going to be talking about the distribution of a survey and formulating the survey to get that on to see if that will work. And they also are going to be finishing up a study south of the slide on coastside transit. Also attended the goal setting session with my fellow council members, staff, and public. And that went well, I thought. And I'm just trying, the athletics in the high school will be starting very soon if it already hasn't started. And they are making some plans for a reopening of at least one grade very soon. I'll let them make their announcement because I'm not quite sure what it is and I don't want to spread a wrong rumor. So anyhow, and I would just kind of taking off what Councilperson Big Stick said is, yes, we are hearing it. We are getting your emails. However, there is a process that has to be followed by the law. And we have to follow that process and move along through the timeline of the state process. So the church and has bought the property, so they have applied for a permit, and that process needs to go along at the speed. But there will be opportunities for public comment at both the Planning Commission and, if it's appealed to City Council, to the City Council. So anyhow, I just wanted to say you are being heard. We are aware. I also went back there just to see what was going on and saw the tractors yesterday in the afternoon. So I believe the city manager will be making some comments on that. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So first I want to thank publicly thank Stacy McLaughlin for facilitating our goal setting over the weekend. It was really a really good experience. I know we're all have already spoken about it, but it it filled me up. It just felt really good, and it felt like we got some really good work done, and we got to know each other, and it was a really good experience. So thank you, and thank you to all the staff. I know specifically Sarah and Elizabeth, you guys worked really hard, so thank you both very much. I attended a special bike and pedestrian committee meeting for it's a CCAG bike and pedestrian meeting, and CCAG is what, Sue Bartolos? Council of Cities and Governments. Is that what it means?
City and County Association of Governments.
I was close.
Yeah, that was close.
Yeah. Obviously, I am new to this committee. So we had a special meeting to vote on some safe and seamless mobility quick strike program, which is through a regional competitive grant program. There'll be funding for quick build or other near-term capital projects focused on bicycle and pedestrian safety and mobility, connections to transit, and project that advance equitable mobility. And so they brought us a whole list of projects that they had scored, and we voted on them. And so there were six projects that are going through. There's one in Redwood City, one in San Mateo, one in Daly City, one in San Bruno, one in South San Francisco, and the other one is, it doesn't say the city, but I'll find that out. They're really big projects, and it's to connect, like it says, to seamlessly connect pedestrian and bike trails throughout transportation corridors. And so obviously Pacifica isn't on that list. Pacifica did not submit an application for any of the projects. And so that's okay, because I'm learning all about the process. And then when it comes time for us to really take a look at our own bike and pedestrian master plan, then we can see what projects we can come up with then. I went to the committee and commission interviews. I didn't get to actually speak that night, but thank you for my co-counsel for stepping in for me. But I did listen intentfully and got all the information, so thank you for that. I also attended the Council of Cities meeting, which was very interesting, which Councilmember Varlas talked about. I met with people from Tree City Pacifica, and they informed me about all of the research that they're doing on best practices around canopy, percentage of canopy coverings, and heritage trees and tree replacement. And so they have just a whole wealth of information. So I'm really looking forward to having that information be integrated into our upcoming discussions around the tree ordinance and the urban tree policies. I met also with Lynn Adams from the Pacific Beach Coalition, and we just talked about the needs of the Beach Coalition moving forward and how I can advocate for those. I also am part of the Mental Health and Service Act Housing Initiative Task Force. So I attended that first meeting where we're looking at different housing projects across the county. When I have more information on those projects, I will bring them to you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Well, a lot of what my co-council members stated were things that I also participated in. I did want to highlight the committee and commission interview process that we did through Zoom. I don't remember the exact number. I'm going to say 10 to 12 volunteers in the community stepped forward, put their hat in the ring for 3 different committees, which we'll be discussing later in this meeting. And I just want to thank those folks for taking the time to do that. And it's really encouraging to see people becoming more and more engaged in those kinds of ways. I attended actually 2 different beautification advisory committee related meetings. One, they're largely focused on the mural proposal for the Anza Pump Station building, which is the little brown building at Lindemar Beach, where the restrooms and showers are located. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the Unity mural proposal, I highly recommend that you do. it's a very robust proposal because there's kind of a little bit of a jog. So there's almost 5 faces to that building in some kinds of ways. And a separate mural was proposed for each of the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. And very thoughtful work went into the design for each of those murals and the explanation by the artists or their representatives on why they came up with the design they did. Comment was given by the public and questions were raised. So I think that was a good process, and more to come on that as it moves through the process. The Coastal Cities Group meeting was another one of those examples. I've mentioned this before too. I mean, the Council of Cities meeting, it's another one of those examples where you go to the presentation, hear about what's going on in another city, at least I do, and go, oh, I wish we were doing that. Or, oh, I wish there was an opportunity for that in Pacifica, because some very significant community development is happening in San Carlos, in an area on the east side of San Carlos that has largely been untouched. I mean, really, it hasn't changed much since a little bit after World War II, I would guess, is when a lot of those businesses were put together. And, you know, light industrial businesses on Industrial Boulevard, and some very interesting proposals and plans going forward around housing, housing with including significant childcare facilities. They're taking care of a deficit in childcare, which, you know, Pacifica also has. We're another city in the county that we just don't have enough childcare spots. So it's very inspiring, and I always feel a little jealous and look forward to ways that we can, you know, find the right projects for Pacifica. I'm not saying what they're doing in San Carlos can be just plopped down in Pacifica by any stretch, but knowing that other communities are finding ways to get things done, I hope that we're able to follow suit. I attended a Coastal Cities Group working meeting. Assistant City Manager Wermeister was kind enough to attend with me, and we worked on a survey that will be going out to all the coastal cities in the state regarding specifically zeroing in on their experience in submitting a local coastal plan update. What worked, what didn't, how long did it take, any recommendations for best practices, this sort of thing. It's a follow-on to a survey that was conducted last year. And the whole intent is to really suss out where the problems are and where the successes are in working on this process with the Coastal Commission, so that, you know, for the benefit of all coastal cities. So more on that as it evolves. And then, of course, our council goal setting process, which, you know, I feel like I've spent so much time with all of you. And we did spend a lot of time together, and I think it was time well spent. It was a good opportunity to reinforce, you know, what our commitment to service is on behalf of the citizens of Pacifica, and how we take seriously and how we address the goals that the city, we as a city have set, and how we prioritize projects against those goals. And what became really evident to me, and what I just want to state for the record, for myself as much as for everyone else, is we really have to resist the urge to pile on more projects. I realize that, you know, the world does not come to a halt just because we had a goal setting session, and it's not as if nothing else is going to come up, but we cannot, and I can really recall seeing with past city councils a few years ago, a process of getting off track on their goals because they started focusing on something else. And I believe in the goals that we've set. I think the projects, the priorities that we've committed to are ones that in many cases we've been working on for several years. Some of the comments that we had tonight and that we had over the weekend on goal setting reflect an a not complete understanding of what has gone on in the past leading to where we are. I often hear, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's a message to me about what we need to do to educate and re-educate the public around how we got to this place. I think our discussion tonight about the item 7 is another example. That, you know, that came from council direction a year ago. That came from a recommendation 2 years before that. And so it seems like when something's just happening, we just thought of it. And in fact, these projects are building on work that has been done by staff and council, sometimes for years leading up to this point. So I look forward to working with the community and hope to have more opportunities to have dialogue and provide information. And I have no doubt that this community is going to continue to let us know what it wants us to know and ask the questions that it has. And with that, I'm going to give it over to staff for staff communications. And then I would recommend that we take a short break before we start into our consideration items for tonight.
All right,
City
great.
Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Beth Meyer, Mayor Pro Tem Beer, and council members. Kevin Woodhouse, City Manager. I have a few updates that I'll touch on. I want to start with a couple positive things related to coronavirus and the pandemic. You know, last week or over the last couple of weeks, actually, we've heard the county talk about if we continue this current trend, within a couple weeks, we might be able to move from the red tier into the orange tier, and to the extent that those tier designations continue, you know, by the governor. But that's just a good trend. Orange means more business capacity opens, and so it's the right direction to head. The important thing is continuing our health safe practices and wearing masks, even while folks are being vaccinated, et cetera, during this time period, so we can continue that positive progress. Also, we heard over the weekend, and I pointed out at Saturday's goal setting session, that there's some good news coming from the federal level with the federal relief package, the 1.9 trillion package, which includes 350 billion for local governments. And that package is headed back to the House for vote due to the changes the Senate made. And then I did check in with Congresswoman Spears' office today about process, or actually over the weekend, about process after that. And the Treasury Department's going to need to issue guidelines related to those, you know, relief buckets of funding. So we don't know precisely what those guidelines are going to be, the strings attached to the funding, et cetera. But we are we're looking forward to learning more about that. So obviously more information will come forth to the City Council. Segueing off of coronavirus, I want to mention, and I actually mentioned it briefly earlier, that Senator Josh Becker will be with us at the next City Council meeting at a 6 o'clock study session prior to the council meeting for kind of an informal meet and greet and conversation with the council, since he's our new senator, and it'll be a good opportunity to really express issues of importance to Pacifica and hear what's on his agenda. So looking forward to that. I also did want to announce that the city was granted $18,000 for the installation of 2 electrical vehicle charging stations in the Rockaway parking lot on Dundee. So we're excited to announce that. I'm not exactly sure of the timeline for that, but we were awarded that money to begin that as part of our ongoing effort for EV charging stations, EV meaning electric vehicle. And the Beach Bites Pacifica program that the Economic Development Committee is working on was mentioned by one of the speakers, which is great. I did just want to add that that's a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber hosting the sort of bingo component of that game. So we're excited to launch that forward, and as the speaker mentioned, more details forthcoming. I also did want to mention that, because it was raised in comment, that the city has been working, I personally have been working diligently to have communication occur between the county and the owners of the San Francisco RV Resort about disposition of that property. And they are at a point where they're working together on an appraisal, but that's all that we know at this point. That's the first step in their communication about that property. So, but that is underway, so that's an important step, and I've been pleased to help facilitate that between the two. Finally, I'll then mention about 650 Cape Breton, and that the city did issue a stop work order for that property today. I think it's really important for the community to understand that property owners have rights to do certain things. They can do things that don't require permits, and they're allowed to do that, but then they can't do things without permits where permits are required. And oftentimes that's a difficult process to confirm, but in this case, it was apparent they were doing some work where they do need permits, and Assistant City Manager Weremeister is on to talk more really about the process related to code enforcement, weekend code enforcement, and I know also that Captain Chris Clements is on the call, because he could probably speak to the police side of the formula related to weekend activities. Again, just like property applications are complicated and there's legal rules to follow, so is the case for code enforcement as well. So Director Weremeister can speak more to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide more explanation about off hours or weekend code enforcement complaints. So we work in partnership with the police department. If there is a complaint that we know is a non life safety complaint. So for example, if somebody notices graffiti somewhere, that will be reported to code enforcement, and that will be taken up on the next regular workday. If there's some activity that maybe a life safety issue, two common ones are a vehicle crash that ends up impacting a building, and we're not sure if that's structurally sound, or if there's a fire in a garage, but we're not sure if the rest of the structure is still habitable. The process is that the police department, when they're notified, they have our phone numbers, they will contact the building official, or they'll contact myself to get staff out there immediately to assess the situation and see if there needs to be immediate action over the weekend. Otherwise, non-life safety issues that may be coming through the PD will be documented, and they'll be directed to code enforcement to take care of on the following working day.
And I did want to
if Captain Clements has anything to add.
Yeah, maybe Captain Clements has more to add, but I did want to also mention that both the building official and code enforcement has been out to that particular site on multiple occasions. So it was mentioned in public comment that maybe that wasn't happening, but I just wanted to make sure everyone is aware. We've talked with them on multiple occasions.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Captain Chris Clements with the Pacifica Police Department, and really just echoing what the Assistant City Manager and the City Manager have to say. Our officers are accustomed to responding to life safety emergencies. We're not quite as well versed when it comes to code enforcement and what kind of activities a private community member or property owner can and can't do on their property. So when we receive a complaint, we'll do the best we can to go out there, record any observations, and then relay that information to code enforcement during their business hours, and they're able to follow up.
And that completes my communications.
Mayor, can I just say I forgot to say something? We have COVID questions with council this coming Friday at 1 o'clock, and we will be talking to our school district administration from Jefferson Union High School District. So tune in. The link will be, where's the link? Where's the link, Kevin? Where can we find the link?
We will push the link out on all of our social media as soon as possible.
Great.
And it would be on the city's coronavirus webpage as well.
Great, thank you.
Could I just ask for a slight clarification on, just for my own knowledge, just from what you were just reporting, Captain Clements and Assistant City Manager, about code enforcement on the weekends for the public? What is the procedure? What do they do?
Well, they can call the police department if they believe that there's a code violation occurring, and we'll send the officer out, and they will do the best that they can to make observations. We can certainly document the name and contact information of the person reporting the code enforcement violation if they're willing to provide that information. And we can relay all of that, the officer's observations, the observations that were reported to us, and the name and number of the person reporting the violation. We'll give all that information to code enforcement. They can follow up during business hours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, shall we have a break before we go to our consideration items? Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 9:32. Actions required to implement an affordable housing regulatory agreement and terminate the condominium approvals at the Villages at Pacifica apartment complex, formerly Marymount Summit Gateway Apartments, located at 405 to 439 and 443 to 467 Gateway Drive in Pacifica. And there's a lot of, do I read all of the parcel numbers? APN.
You do not need to read all of the parcel numbers on the agenda item.
Thank you.
Title.
And so we will have a presentation from Assistant City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I'm Tina Wermeister, Assistant City Manager. On November 23rd, 2020, the City Council approved and authorized execution of an affordable housing regulatory agreement and loan agreement for the conversion of the apartments that are now known as Villages at Pacifica. And this regulatory agreement would create affordable housing project with 168 dwelling units restricted to occupancy by tenants earning not more than 80% of the San Mateo County area median income. The executed regulatory and loan agreements were recorded in January of this year, and several actions are now required to implement the provisions of the regulatory agreement. So this evening, the council is being asked to, 1, approve the property management agent, a requirement that was added by council in the November hearing, And to two, take actions to eliminate the 2008 condominium approvals. And I'll discuss each of these items now. Regarding the property management agent, section 17 of the regulatory agreement requires the owner to designate a property management agent and provide city council approval, provide for city council approval of the management agent. So the owners have proposed the John Stewart Company, which I'll call JSC, to serve as its property management agent, and provided a letter outlining the reasons for this proposal, and also the company profile and team biographies are attached to the staff report. JSC is a San Francisco-based company that manages approximately 140 affordable housing developments in the San Francisco Bay Area, including developments in Redwood City, Palo Alto, and San Francisco. Staff contacted the cities of Redwood City and Palo Alto to discuss their experiences with JSC, and the information provided by both agencies was similar. It indicated that there were no concerns with JSC, and in one instance, JSC was tapped to replace another management firm that was not performing well and with improved outcomes. The city attorney's office also conducted a litigation search, which indicated typical litigation matters for a property management company. Notice of this meeting was published in the Tribune, but it was also provided directly to tenants by mail and by posting in apartment complex common areas. Based on staff's review, staff is recommending that the City Council approve JSC as the owner's property management agent. And I also wanted to point out importantly that Section 18 of the regulatory agreement reserves the city's right to require a change in the management agent for reasonable cause at any time during the term of the agreement. So if there's any issues that come up later, we have that, the city has that ability. Regarding dissolution of the condominium at this complex, this complex does have a condominium map recorded on the property. However, none of the units were sold. The existence of the map prevents the owner from implementing certain provisions of the regulatory agreement and creates contradictory affordable housing obligations. The resolution before council terminates the condominium approval, CC&Rs, and then the prior below market rate compliance agreement and inclusionary zoning compliance agreement. So I wanted to make sure that the public notes that the regulatory agreement approved by council in November and recorded in January actually requires deeper affordability levels to more units, all of them actually, except 2 manager units, and for a longer period of time than with the condominium. So although some of the language may sound concerning that certain affordable housing agreements are being terminated, it's because there's more affordability levels that the council has required of this development. And if any members of the public are curious about that, that is detailed in attachment B, packet page 156, which was a prior staff report. So with that, as I mentioned, staff's recommendation is that the council approve the John Stewart Company as property management agent and adopt the resolution attached to the staff report authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to implement the affordable housing regulatory agreement. And I wanted to also note that the owner, and I believe the owner and John Stewart Company is present and will make a brief statement and be available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there we are.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak on our behalf. I'm Jennifer Wood with the John Stewart Company. You might remember me from November. And we're very pleased to have been selected by the property owners to manage the villages at Pacifica for them. We have extensive experience with affordable housing. The John Stewart Company has been managing various types of affordable housing for more than 40 years. And And for us, affordable housing means, just because it was a point of question so many times earlier in the meeting, it means, rent restricted and income restricted housing, generally to people who earn less than the area median income, which would definitely be the case at this apartment community. So we bring a lot of expertise, a large staff. We've been recognized many times with many awards, and even by the state of California for our diversity. And we think that we're the right manager for this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, let's see. Looking to see if we have any public comment on this item, and if council has any clarifying questions, or if we should go straight to public comment.
Is the owner of the property here too, or?
Yes, Daniel's on the line.
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me?
Yeah, did you want to add anything, Daniel?
I wasn't planning to, but I'm happy to add some comments to that. We've been working now with Jennifer, well, for quite some time on this project, and John Stewart Company. And we went through a pretty vigorous process in terms of interviewing various property management companies. And by the time we came to our conclusion to choose John Stewart, it was obvious to us they were the best fit given their breadth and scope of operating in California, operating affordable properties, and it's been great to work with them. And we continue to build out. We continue to hope to be able to build out our portfolio with them and providing much needed affordable housing throughout communities in California. So for us, this is a exciting partnership with them, and very proud that they're part of the project.
Thank you so much. You actually answered one of the questions I was going to ask. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Other clarifying questions or comments? Nope. All right, let's check with our Deputy City Clerk, Brooks. On
Mayor
public.
Beckmeyer, we have 2 hands raised at this time. Our first speaker is Teresa Talibas Herlily. I'm not sure how to say your name. You're our first speaker. You'll be followed by Sue Degree. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Teresa Talibas Herlihy. And first I want to thank the council and the staff for doing the due diligence and for researching the new management company. And it does look like they have some good track record. And so I look forward to working with them and having them manage the property. To those who are there from representing the company, I do request that perhaps the transparency with going forward would be a little bit more transparent with the process. We received our first letter regarding asking us to fill out the household income questionnaire, and I know it's tied to the to being eligible for the affordable housing, but it was presented as that's something that was needed to get funding, and there was nothing about the affordable housing in that information. So speaking to my fellow neighbors, and a lot of them had a lot of questions, and so I don't know if they are here. So I'm just wanting to make sure that there is an attempt to be more transparent in that process, because I know that qualifying for the affordable housing is tied to the rate increases as well and what they're paying. So it's important that they know that going forward. Thank you so much. And again, I look forward to working with the new management company.
Thank you.
Sue Degree, you're our next speaker. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Sue Degree, and this placement, this change towards affordable has been talked about for a long time, and I've always been very excited about it. I'm happy to see that they've done such good work for getting a managing agent, and that the residents that are there, I know some of them that have been there for a long time went through a lot of problems. So I'm hoping I'm not too late, but I believe that it is council's discretionary powers when it comes to housing to request a set aside for those who have a developmental disability. And maybe the agency already does that since they've been around and in business so long, but your leadership is needed to ensure that a reasonable of set asides for those who have a developmental disability is established. So I'd appreciate your attention to that.
Thank you.
Mayor Beckmeyer, we have one more hand raised from Remy Tan. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Remy Tan, Pacific Manor. Just got a couple quick questions. Like the idea of expanding the affordable housing. That's really great. But it's my understanding this is an existing building, so I'm wondering if tenants who are there that are above the affordable housing income limits, if those tenants get displaced, and is there some relocation funds for those tenants? And then question 2 is the total affordable housing count of this apartment building or complex. Is that reflected in that report regarding the RENA that was in the consent item 8? Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor Beckmeyer, there are no other hands raised.
All right, then we'll close public comment, bring it back to council. Could Assistant City Manager, can you address the questions that were just raised regarding displacement and
Unit count?
unit count? Yes, and
Sure.
with regard, I think what he's saying is with regard to RENA. Yeah.
Sure. So current state law does not allow us to count these units in our RENA allocation because they're existing units. The state is looking more towards new construction or subdivision of an existing larger building. So there's actually a new unit created. Regarding displacement, as the council will recall from the earlier hearings, this regulatory agreement will not displace any tenants. So if you are living there and you do not income qualify, for example, you will not be displaced. And actually the property owner will pay prorated property taxes on that unit. And then once there's a natural attrition and that person decides for whatever reason they move on at whatever point, then it would be rented to a qualified affordable tenant.
Yes, Councilmember O'Neill.
In regards to the developmental disability provision, is there a set aside for that case?
I'll go ahead and let Ms. Wood address that.
Okay, thank you. There is not an existing set aside for people with developmental disabilities, but we are in fact doing outreach and marketing to agencies that serve people with developmental disabilities. We follow the Fair Housing Act, and we will rent to anyone who is income qualified and establishes that they can pay the rent, whether that's independently or with assistance. And we'd be happy to hear more from the speaker, the person who spoke. And if she's affiliated with an organization that we can do some outreach with, we would be happy to do that.
I believe she's affiliated with PARCA, Peninsula Association of Retarded Children and Adults. It's in Burlingame.
Thank you.
And I would guess, assume most of the units or a percentage of the units will be ADA compatible or accessible.
So right now, the units are older, and so they would need some modifications to qualify as, you know, to meet current codes. But we do perform reasonable accommodations and modifications for people with disabilities. And, you know, one thing that's different about this community than some of the others that are specifically designated for people with developmental disabilities is that we don't have, at this time, we don't have built-in support services for that population. We do manage many communities that are specifically designated for people with developmental disabilities and other types of disabilities where there are great supportive services that are part of the housing. So we'd be happy to continue the discussion. I wrote down the name of the organization and we'll make sure that we do outreach to you about our availability.
Let me just clarify the name. It's Partners and Advocates for Remarkable Children and Adults.
Oh, they changed the name from what I remember.
Yeah.
Question, I know back in November when you first came to the council, you had said that you were considering building some ADU, accessory dwelling units in the back, in the parking lot of the building. And I was wondering if that was still one under consideration. And if it is, could we, I don't want to upset the apple cart now because we've had all, you know, you've gotten your loan, your owners and everything to put a set aside now. But when you do if you do apply for those ADUs, I would like to see a set aside for developmental disabilities and physically handicapped ADA units. I seem to remember either 40 or 70, but I could be wrong on both numbers. I don't remember, but from November. And are you still considering that, or?
Yeah, so management isn't doing the development piece. That's the owners that are handling the development. But there will be a percentage of units that are required to be fully mobility impaired accessible, as well as some that are sensory units that have special features for people with hearing or visual disabilities. And Daniel, do you want to comment on the construction plans?
Yeah, so we're still moving forward full steam on that. We're right now in the design phase, so we're hoping to submit our first round here shortly for the ADUs. As it relates to the ADA, I will say that, you know, we will be conforming to whatever the prevailing building code is regarding the ADA. So just, I don't want to necessarily backtrack on what Jennifer said, but I know that our architects are going to follow, and they're working closely with the plan checker of building and safety, along with Christian over at planning, to make sure that we meet all the prevailing building codes. So.
Okay, and what about for developmental disabilities? Whatever the special needs are for that group.
That's something that we could look into further, and I'll speak about that with the architect to see how we can address those needs. I mean, I could tell you now we're doing a lot of outreach to San Mateo County along with other cities. I mean, for instance, we're talking with Foster City right now about helping get their families who are potentially going to be displaced to get them over. We're working with Brilliant Corners and their clients who all have a number of some disability or handicap, and we're trying to figure out how to convert our existing units, albeit it could be a little bit challenging, but we're doing what we can to address the varying needs of the populations that we're dealing with. So it's definitely something that I can tell you, as it relates to the ADU, we are talking with these various organizations like Abode Services, like Brilliant Corners, San Mateo County Housing, to figure out how to design those units in a fashion that could accommodate the people who are coming through those doors. So that much I can say we're doing.
And refresh my memory, how many units were you thinking of building, or you were considering? Was it 40 or was it 70?
we'll take 70 if you want to give it to us now.
Okay, well, I don't, I'm not giving you, I just couldn't remember actually, because, you know,
We're shooting for 42.
okay.
Right.
Now, Director Wermeister, is it common for a council to request a certain number of units be either ADA or, you know, what, can you familiarize me with, or the council with the requirements of what's existing and, you know, what's the existing code now? Thank you, Daniel.
So I don't have off the top of my head the number, the ratio, but the current code does require a portion of the new units that will need to be accessible, fully accessible. These units under the new ADA laws we haven't fully analyzed them, but may only need a building permit. So the current ADA laws and statutes would apply. So there wouldn't be a mechanism unless the applicant, you know, just did it to have some sort of accommodation over and above the ADA requirements if it's just building code.
Okay, so, but you're not quite sure if the building code requires 10%, 5%, 15, whatever be ADA required?
I don't have that number. I don't know if Daniel does. Working with his architects.
No, we're happy to look into it and see what the code says about that for the ADUs. You know, for what it's worth, I could tell you that, you know, just working within the frame of the building has some limitations overall because there's some structural limitations. So how we design those units, the number of units, it's kind of like a game of Tetris, if you will, of just being able to get enough square footage while not being in a position where we have to completely rework the structural integrity of the building.
Oh, I'm not talking about the existing building because I don't want to upset the apple cart at all. I'm just talking about ADUs and that part, because I understand you've got a deck of cards and that's what you've been dealt and you have to make it work. I was just really inquiring about the ADU, which would be new construction and far easier to adapt than the existing building. So I understand that. I'll pass now. I'm done. Thank you very much, Daniel, Tina.
Thank you.
And Jennifer.
Other questions from council? Seeing none. Councilmember Vaterlas.
I did read through everything. It was very detailed, but I just want to point out that if some of the units are not affordable, that the property taxes will still be incurred and paid by the developer on those units that are not currently affordable. And is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, I guess time for a motion.
I'll entertain.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve.
Wait, Tiger had his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Tiger, I didn't see that.
Didn't see that.
They were relatively minor comments. I just wanted to reaffirm thanking Assistant City Manager Wehrmeister and thank you, Ms. Wood, and thank you, Daniel. And I just wanted to echo what Mike was saying and the sentiment that if at all possible to put a percentage of affordable units aside for folks with developmental disabilities, presumably in the form of the ADUs. I think that council would appreciate that effort if it's at all possible. And I also wanted to briefly touch on what Teresa Tobias Hurley was saying about transparency, but specifically, you know, as you've observed, Pacifica in general is a community that very much appreciates community involvement, and something as simple as figuring out a way to do a meeting of the residents involved would probably go a long way toward forming a really good relationship from the outset. And a quick thing about how, as a planning commissioner, the Marymount Gateway Apartments was one of the first things to come before us in this very odd framework of being kind of a rent control issue, which was way out of our scope, but that's how it fell. And so to see that turned around in quick order to being a truly affordable project in the way of villages at Pacifica is really heartwarming. And I'm so happy to be voting on this project tonight. Would you like I make a motion, Ms. Mayor?
Be very happy.
I move to approve the John Stewart Company as the property management agent and adopt the attached resolution to authorize the city manager to execute all documents necessary to implement the affordable housing regulatory agreement at the villages at Pacifica Apartment Complex and terminate the condominium approvals, including the agreements for termination of the Summit at Skyline CCNRs, termination of below market rate compliance agreement, and termination of inclusionary zoning compliance agreement.
Second.
For consideration, item number 9, moved by Councilmember Big Stick, seconded by Vaterlos. We'll do the roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
And Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And number 9 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer and Daniel, for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
All right, moving on to item 10. This is our committee and commission. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page there. Our appointments to the Beautification Advisory Committee, Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee, and Planning Commission. We'll be appointing 1 applicant for beautification, 1 for Open Space and Parkland Advisory, and 2 for the Planning Commission. And I will give this over to our city clerk, if you would give us an overview of what you need us to do to proceed.
Happy to, Mayor Beckmeyer, Mayor Pro Tem Beer, and council members. The City of Pacifica opened up recruitment for applicants for the Beautification Advisory Committee, the Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee, and the Planning Commission to fill vacancies due to vacancies and expiring terms on these commissions and committees. The opportunities were published in the Pacifica Tribune on January 20th, January 24th, and February 3rd of this year. The opportunities were also published on the city's website, in the city's Connect with Pacifica weekly e-newsletter, and on Nextdoor. The city received 4 timely applications for the Beautification Advisory Committee, 4 timely applications for the Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee, and 5 timely applications for the Planning Commission. Subsequent to the receipt of the applications, 1 applicant withdrew their interest in the Planning Commission vacancy, leaving 4 applicants for consideration for Planning Commission. Interviews for the city committee and commissions were held by a special city council meeting via Zoom on February 23rd of this year. The list of applicants for each of the committees and commission are attached to the staff report, and these are the applicants under consideration for these. Council may deliberate on the nominations and for each of the committees and commissions, and recommend that candidates a motion be made for each of the city committees and commissions to appoint a named applicant for that committee commission, and specifying if they're for the Planning Commission, we have 2 terms under consideration, 1 for a full 4-year term and 1 for a partial term. And in the motion, please specify to which term the named individual should be appointed.
Process question. Um, do you want us to, like, I would make my motion for who I want, or do you want each of us just to name who we would put on and then we do a vote with the top person?
That is really a discussion for the council to decide. The discretion is up to the council's majority to determine how you want to nominate. You could have a, preliminary deliberations on each appointment, just in general, to see how the council wants to, address those appointments before you actually go into nominations. But the process is entirely up to the council. There's no set standard that the council needs to follow in terms of making the appointments.
Councilmember Vaterlos. Thank you, City Attorney.
I'd like to start out and nominate Linda Jonas for the Beautification Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
Okay, now we have to have a public comment on each, before we vote. So do we
That was
want to
my
have?
question. Do we do one public comment or public comment on each separate?
We can have one public comment for this. It's one agenda item. So just one public comment period. I would suggest that you might want to have it now so that you don't miss people.
Don't forget, get lost in the middle. Yes. Let's turn to public comment. Deputy City Clerk, do you see any hands raised for public comment at this time?
There are no hands raised.
Oh,
There is one hand raised.
One hand is now raised.
Okay, go ahead.
Aaron Macias, you're our speaker this evening. Please state your name for the record.
This is Erin Macias of Lindemar, and I will be brief. I attended the Beautification Committee recently, and I was really impressed with the staff, the volunteer team that is running that. If Linda Jonas is a nominee for placement on that committee or to elevate any responsibilities she has, Linda is a very committed community volunteer and highly qualified to take on any additional responsibilities. So I would make a vote in favor of Linda as a community member. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Beckmeyer, I do not see any other hands raised.
All right, then we'll close public comment on this item, bring it back to council.
And there's a motion on the floor, so, and a second. So.
Did you get that information, City Clerk Coffee? On the motion and the second?
A motion by Councilmember Vaterlos for Linda Jonas on the Beautification Advisory Committee for the full 4-year term, expire March 2025, with a second by Mayor Pro Tem Beer. And I'll call the vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
And Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And Linda Jonas is appointed to the Beautification Advisory Committee by a vote of 5-0.
I'd like to make a motion for John Niblin for the 4-year term on planning and George Damarat for the partial term. I hope I pronounced his last name correct, for the planning commission.
I'll second that.
And with a motion by Councilmember O'Neill and a second by Councilmember Vaterlos to appoint John Niblin for the 4-year term on Planning Commission and George Damarat for the partial term on Planning Commission, I'll now call the vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick.
Yes.
Councilmember Vaterlos.
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer.
Yes.
And Mayor Beckmeyer.
Yes.
And with that unanimous vote, John Niblin is appointed for the 4-year term on Planning Commission, and George Damarat is appointed to the partial term to expire in March 2023 for Planning Commission.
Is that Mayor Pro Tem? Were you raising? your hand?
Councilmember Big Stick has his hand up.
Oh, okay. I saw yours first.
Yeah, no, I'm a little slow tonight, so sorry about that.
Councilmember Big Stick.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Aaron Reed to Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
And a motion by Councilmember Big Stick to appoint Aaron Reed to the partial term on Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee to expire May 2023, with a second by Councilmember O'Neill. I'll call the vote, starting with Councilmember Big Stick,
Yes.
Councilmember Butterlos,
Yes.
Councilmember O'Neill,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beer,
Yes.
Mayor Beckmeyer,
Yes.
and Aaron Reed is appointed to the position on Open Space and Parkland Advisory Committee to expire in May 2023.
And that concludes our action items tonight. Thank you, council and staff. And this concludes our meeting at 10:10 p.m.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.